I've just woken up and, as usual, I get things in my head. I'm a number 3, so I'm very creative. But I get things in my head and I thought, I'm going to just do something today or have a little chat like I do on here. And then I looked at the clock and I saw that the clock was having double numbers. And I always love it whenever, if I see, 0404 or 1111 or 2222 or whatever. And I always think it's really exciting, and it's not, for me, it's synchronistic. It means something. So I thought today I would just talk about one of my favorite people in numerology, which is Pythagoras. So I think he was the original spiritual detective. And I must admit, I like to think of myself in that way sometimes because I love referencing and I love really checking everything out, because if things don't resonate with me, I always bin them. I like it to be my own truth. So let's have a little chat about my friend Pythagoras. You probably remember him for the triangle thing, the theorem that made half the population panic. But Pythagoras was far more interesting than that. He was a philosopher, he was a mystic, a musician, a man who believed the whole universe was built on harmony. And I actually really believe that. And I feel that I've learnt to believe that by experience. So imagine a scientist who also taught reincarnation and sacred geometry. That's Pythagoras. He believed numbers weren't just quantities that you add up. He believed they had a personality. And I really believe that too. They have a personality, they have a vibration, they even have a purpose. And when you learn how he saw numbers, the whole world suddenly looks like it's made of patterns. Numbers are in everything, even the pencil that you write, on a piece of paper, even the piece of paper, your clothing. It has to be somebody's idea at the very beginning, but everything goes down to numbers. Anyway, it becomes a bit like detective work, and I love mystery. So I was thinking to myself, why numbers matter more than we think. So let's talk about vibration just for a moment. In physics, I've said this a few times, haven't I? Everything vibrates. Atoms, sound, light, even your emotions. So if everything vibrates and every vibration can be measured, what do we measure with? Numbers. Pythagoras believed numbers were the building blocks of the universe. The original cosmic fingerprint. If you understand your numbers, you'll understand your story. So let's meet them. Let's do just numbers 1 to 9, and 1 I also see as a number 10. The original cast of characters, I reckon. So let's just see them as, shall we say, characters in a cosmic story? Yeah, I like that. So let's call them as if they were, or look at them as if they were characters. So number 1, or number 10, is the solo artist. I usually say to everyone, he's or she's the entrepreneur, the person who is sort of aware of all sorts of different opportunities and tends to sort of put them together. Number 1 walks onto the stage first, obviously because it loves being first. And it's so true. It's independent, strong-willed, a natural leader, a natural entrepreneur. Imagine the friend who always says, I'll do it, before anyone else has a chance to even stand up and say, I will. Spiritually, I think it's a spark of creation because it is entrepreneurial. It's also psychologically, it's the moment that you decide who you are. But with great power comes, well, I suppose, the occasional stubborn streak with a number 1 or number 10. And I think the lesson here is to lead, but don't isolate yourself on the mountaintop, because if you are an entrepreneur, you're always bringing down information, and sometimes that's where you love to be. So yes, don't isolate yourself on a mountaintop. I think the number 2, shall we call the number 2 the peacemaker? So number 2 is floating in like a soft breeze. It's quite ethereal, it's spiritual, it's gentle, it's sensitive, and it's emotional. The one in your group who always knows when you're not okay, because they're very intuitive, very psychic, before you've even opened your mouth. 2, I think, is about connection. It's about balancing quite often the opposites, and it's about balancing your intuition. So I always feel with the number 2, there is a shadow side. Sometimes it feels things are a little too deep, and also a number 2 forgets its own boundaries. So yeah, I feel it's very mystical, it's very spiritual. In fact, in the tarot, of course, it's the high priestess. And I think the lesson there is to soften, but not dissolve away into the ether, into your mind, into your thoughts, which a lot of 2 people can do. But 2 people are great actually as listeners as well. They can be great as a counsellor, doctor, somebody who needs to actually listen to what the person is saying to them. And a lot of people don't do that and find it quite hard to listen, because they're usually 6 mile ahead in their heads. So they're thinking about what they're going to say. But 2s are great at listening. So as we progress forward now, we go into the number 3. And the 3 is the entertainer. I'm actually a number 3. And if number 3 had a job, it would be an artist. Well, I love to paint, and I paint all the time. A storyteller, yes, I can talk for England. Or someone who can't get through a sentence without making you laugh. Well, I do like to bring in, as you know, with these podcasts, that sort of passionate but silly side as well. But it's expressive, creative. Some people are charming. I don't know about that about me. But it can also scatter itself in 5 directions at once. And I must admit, that's something that I do. I'm always off on a tangent. I always have lots of different balls up in the air at the same time, because it's almost like I'm greedy to know what's happening, and I'm greedy to try something out, to detect things, to reference things and stuff like that. But spiritually, it's the soul wanting to speak. Psychologically, I think it's our inner child, maybe waving that paintbrush and saying, "Look what I've made." Yeah, I think I can take that too. So 3 people are very creative, artistic, but they're also bringing things into people's lives. So they can be the the psychologist or the doctor or the veterinarian or the cook or the designer, somebody that brings in creative stuff to help other people. So maybe the lesson is express, but don't pretend everything is fine when it's not. I'm going to ponder upon that one. So then we come on to number 4. And I'm going to call the number 4 the architect, because in the tarot, of course, it's the emperor. And when we meet number 4, I think it's like somebody will turn up. I can just imagine somebody turning up with a clipboard and a plan, because they're very organized and they like to do things in certain ways, and they're quite stubborn. But actually, usually 4s are right, because they do things very methodically, very carefully. Sometimes it can get a bit rigid or stubborn, but the cosmic equivalent of who moved my post-it notes, because they like things in a certain way. And they are also the person that a lot of people go to for wise sort of lessons to learn, or helping somebody out, or somebody that you go to that will always give you good, solid advice. So the lesson, I think, is structure is helpful, but maybe don't build a concrete wall around your entire life, because lives are not structured like a concrete wall. But yes, I think fours really are, sort of almost like a very old soul in many ways, because they tend to have so many inspired information about so many things. And they also are the businessman or the businesswoman. Anyway, so let's get into number 5. Now, number 5 is definitely the humanitarian. And I'm going to call this one the adventurer, because I think number 5s, they really get on with their lives. They're quite unaware of what other people think about them, but they're very, as I said, humanitarian. They live in the moment. They don't realize that quite often 5s are very attractive to other people, because they've got this free flow thing going on. It's almost like they're doing cartwheels no matter where they are. They definitely love freedom. They like excitement, and they like spontaneity. If numbers had passports, I think number 5s would be full, because, as I say, that they are the adventurer. They are really interested in people. They're really interested in balance and things being correct and right. And they love different cultural things as well. It's also got sort of like a sensual, curious way, always searching for the next experience and fitting as many in as they can as well. But it can also struggle with staying still long enough to finish anything. I think the lesson there could be explore, yes, but don't run away from yourself. Because like I say, they tend to forget themselves, and they're not aware of who they are often, and other people are. As I say, people are generally really drawn to a number 5. Now, number 6 in the Tower, of course, is the Lover's card. So I'm going to call this one the Heart. So a number 6 will arrive with nurturing things. Number 6 is great, to comfort people. So let's say number 6 arrives with biscuits and a warm blanket and a fully stocked emotional first aid kit, because they listen, and they've got this amazing, loving, nurturing way of looking at people. This is the healer, the emotional healer. I would say also number 6, the heart, would be the empath, the nurturer. Number 6 loves deeply and serves generously, I think. But sometimes it loves so much it forgets to love itself. So 6 people usually have gift of the gab, great talkers, great conversationalists. So maybe the lesson there is to care for others, yes, but don't set yourself on fire to keep everyone warm, because you'll scatter yourself and you'll make yourself really thin, and then eventually you're going to have missing pieces of your own. So yeah, turn that love in onto yourself. Then we got number 7. Number 7, I think 7 is a mystical number, isn't it? A lot of people, if they say, what's your lucky number, a lot of people will choose the 7. Let's call this one the mystic. So 7 is the spiritual detective of the group. They're usually quite quiet, observant. They're always analysing. But it's got, again, that entrepreneurial feel to a number 7, because they get lots of ideas. And quite often they're good at sort of bringing those ideas into fruition. But also, I think, number 7s usually travel a lot because they have an open mind. And although a number 7 loves the unseen world, being spiritual, the mysteries, the big question, of course, of why we're here. What is consciousness? Where did my other sock go? I'm often pondering on that one, and I do believe there might be a planet of socks somewhere. But the gift of the 7, I think, is wisdom. Maybe the channel is not getting lost inside its own mind, because they are the thinkers and they are the entrepreneurs. So they're always sorting something out. So maybe the lesson for number 7 might be seek truth, but don't hide in the cave forever. Yeah. So I think a 7 is very spiritual, very much in their head, but also the adventurer. Again, it's got that adventurous streak to it, but it's really all about the mystic adventurer. Then we got number 8, and the number 8 I feel is very much the person everybody else would come to. So I think I'm going to call the number 8 the power player. And I always think about the number 8, if you put it on its side, it looks like the infinity sign, doesn't it? So everything's onward, progressive. So if a number 8 walks into the room, I think you'd feel it. I think people are drawn to number 8s because they usually have a presence around them, a confidence, and, strangely, they don't even seem to know they have that confidence, but other people see it, and I think that's another one that a lot of people are drawn to, attracted to. It's that je ne sais quoi, perhaps, but they do have ambition. And this number knows how to manifest, how to build and succeed, and how to lead. So a number 8 is also very, very humanitarian too, people orientated. So I feel they would be the one, perhaps right from being little in the schoolyard or the playground, would be the one that all the other little children would be, sort of pulled to like a bee to honey. Spiritually, it teaches us about balance between the material and the metaphysical. So I think that's where they have that sort of ambition, that confidence, but they've also got that presence because they mix those two together. I think a number 8 has a shadow side, though. If the ego gets involved, it becomes all business and can then be awkward trying to have a congruence with the heart center. But yes, I think the lesson here is power is sacred when used with integrity. But the 8 is a powerhouse, definitely. So a good person to have in your group, a good person to have as a friend, a good person to work for. Then we come to number 9, and I want to call the number 9 the old soul. And a number 9 has very heavy energy to carry because a number 9 is usually the facilitator of others, the wise one. So finally we reach that number 9, and it's the person who walks in like someone who has lived 10 lifetimes and seen everything twice. So they're very wise, they carry that wisdom, that sort of sense of knowing. But a 9 is compassionate. They tend to give their energy to other people and again, forget themselves, put all their eggs in a different basket. But when they do wake up to they're here for them too, they can be incredible entrepreneurs and they can be very, very successful. But the 9 is wise, intuitive, humanitarian. It feels the collective energy very deeply, very honed in on that, very tuned in on that. But because of it, sometimes, like I say, it can carry burdens that aren't its own because they'll put other people ahead of them. But they're usually very clever. They bring down wise thoughts. So maybe the lesson is release the past and trust the cycle and let endings be endings because they can hold on to stuff. So there is a pattern behind it all, I think. And I like the idea that I had about looking at characters. But of course, this is a tiny, tiny sort of look at the numbers in a nutshell. So people aren't all just what I've said. There'll be many, many other things. And of course, intuitively, when I'm doing readings, I do this to begin, and I always pick up the energy. I prefer to do readings literally, so I'm not looking at the person. I like to do it totally in the energy, really, if I had a choice. I love doing readings online because of that, on Zoom. If I have a person in the room with me, I always look in the corner away from them, so I have to apologise because I don't like picking up body language. But you do intuitively pick up an awful lot about people and their numbers. So there you have it. 9 numbers, 9 archetypes, 9 little doorways into understanding the human experience. But Pythagoras believed that everything in life is a part of a cycle. And numbers 1 through to 9 aren't random. They're the rhythm of creation, I think. The stages of growth, the journey we repeat in different lifetimes again and again. And each time we're on a higher level because we've learnt something from the other lifetime or experience. So when you look at your life through numerology, you start to see patterns. You start to understand why certain years feel like beginnings and others feel like endings and others feel like total chaos or maybe even a deep transformation. I love numbers, I really do. And when you understand those patterns, life suddenly feels, I think, less random and far more meaningful. It becomes a spiritual investigation, a mystery with clues everywhere. And like I said, you are the detective, just like I am. And I think what I'm going to do is intermittently, I'll bring into the podcast different forms of numerology for different parts of your life, like your name or your birth date or whatever. So we'll talk about that later on. But I hope you enjoyed this one. And I hope you enjoy and love numbers as much as I do. Thank you so much for joining me today. This podcast is free to listen to, and if you'd like to help me keep creating it, you can support the show through my Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Every bit of support means the world. And if you'd like to go deeper into your own journey, come and visit me at margaretdepetro.com. You'll find ways to book tarot readings with me, courses, Reiki and healing appointments, meditations, and lots more waiting for you there. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep walking your own beautiful path.